was funny.
What did you say?
Seinfeld not funny.
Nice.
Light me up in the comments.
Light him up. I actually don't care about that opinion at all.
Yeah.
That opinion does nothing for me.
I don't think anybody should. If you like Seinfeld, good for you. I like things that you don't like as well. So Last Jedi is probably the best Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
I mean, nobody here disagrees with that. So.
Fuck yeah.
Dave might.
I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, it could be the 12th movie for all he knows.
Which one did I watch a whole lot?
The Force Awakens.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one. I like that one.
Good enough. I can't even remember what it's called.
I mean,
you don't
why
have to.
would you know
Well,
what it's called?
it's-
You just came in the break room and it was just on. You're like, oh, this is good.
I'll watch this.
You don't have to remember. Like, I think there's a lot of like, oh, you don't know a name of a song, therefore you're not a real fan. It's like, I mean, like mixtapes. Like, I mean, for me, like I was always getting mixtapes, CDs that my friends gave me, and I wouldn't know the names on the songs.
Yeah.
But I loved them, and I hear them, and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah.
Fake fan.
Yeah, fake fan.
Fake fan.
Go ahead.
I'm glad I have your permission this time.
Yeah.
Adam, are you good with this?
What do you mean? Is it different?
No, I'm asking permission.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah.
Dave?
Old Dave.
Yeah.
Old Dave.
All day.
Old Dave.
Morning. Welcome to Don't Be the Artist. I'm Hagen.
I'm Dave.
Old
I'm Adam.
Dave.
I'm Jackson.
Are you new Jackson or old Jackson?
I don't know.
I don't know what we're doing. So
I don't know if we're doing like a, like philosophy thing and like, like are you always new? Or are you the old you? Like, are you what? Like, I don't know. Am I new Jackson?
you're not drinking Dr. Pepper, so maybe.
Oh yeah. I'm trying not to do that kind of stuff. I'm eating healthy.
Whoa.
Hey, Ian in the chat, could you hear the horn?
Oh, yeah,
There is a chat delay, so we're gonna get that.
That's a great question.
That's a good check, actually.
Oh
Yeah.
no, Ian. I was like, I don't know Ian.
Yeah.
But I don't know him, but I kind of figured like, oh, he's gonna like Seinfeld and I'm gonna get lit up. But he said boo on Seinfeld for him too, so I think Ian and I are back on course.
I think you're best friends now.
For everybody who watched the YouTube video, I guess just the live stream, the audio was like royally fucked. That's why Dave is asking if you can hear the air
Oh, it was
horn.
none of the mics or sound
It was the
effects.
it was,
room.
it was
It's
the
honestly
iPhone.
on the
It was
chat
the-
for not saying anything.
Yeah,
I don't blame
it's really
Hagen. I don't
somebody
blame New
specific.
Dave. I don't blame Adam. I've never blamed Adam.
It would be fucked if you blamed New Dave.
Yeah.
New Dave has a
Unless
great
he
mustache.
unplugged things.
New Dave does have a great mustache. Even if you unplugged stuff, that wouldn't have explained what happened. It was wild.
Yeah.
I think during that episode last week with New Dave, I said something like, "Oh, you also like wear like a specific hat." And then as soon as like it was one of those things where I sat in the car, he was talking about how Edgar Derby wears a specific hat, and I was like, "Man, I guess I've just never noticed the hat." And I sat down in the car. I was like, I know the fucking hat.
Yeah.
Like immediate. I thought he was talking like a ball cap or something like that. And I was like, oh, so you always have a hat. Okay, cool. And then I immediately sat down. I was like, oh, it's like, it's a
The look
specific hat.
The look is always the same.
I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen Adam in a hat.
I don't really care for hats. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
All
wears
right.
beanies.
Beanies are different. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're hats.
They go on your head.
Here's
They're
a
of the
question.
hat variety.
Here's a question. This was bothering me a lot yesterday. I had a migraine all day yesterday, and this came up in a conversation, and I was just really already in a bad mood, so this was just tough for me. But why is it called a
What is it called?
Why is it called a workbench? You sit on a bench. Why isn't it called a work table? I don't understand that use of the word. Why is it
Have
like
you looked it up?
we spent so long looking it up yesterday?
Okay, I'm
yeah,
not even gonna do it.
it's stupid, dumb.
Yeah.
But just curious if anybody has a good reason. As
I
to
don't
why.
sit on that.
Yeah, exactly. Golly,
Other
thank
than
you.
English is dumb and doesn't make sense a lot.
English
That's all I
is
got.
dumb and doesn't make sense a lot. That's what I landed on
Yeah.
too. That's
I
exactly.
thought that building should be called build or built.
Oh, instead of
In,
buildings.
if it's in
Is it
construction.
floor 0 or floor 1?
Floor 0.
No, floor 1.
Well, I don't know.
I like saying lift.
Ground floor.
you like saying
Ground
lift?
floor is
Yeah.
good.
Like
That's a
that's-
happy in
yeah,
between.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow. God damn.
Ground-
Fucking mediator over here.
Ground floor 1.
Oh, dude, I stood in an elevator at a hotel I was staying in last week without pushing a floor to go to. I was like, man, this thing is taking forever.
You just sat there.
I just stood there like, wow.
I would panic after
I've
like
done
some
that.
point.
Yeah. It was, to be fair, it was like 7:30 in the morning. And so I was barely awake. And I was just like,
How many floors were there, though?
I was on the second floor.
Because I've
I
done
was
that.
like, this is, I'm not, I
I've only
feel like
done
I'm not
that.
even moving.
I've done that, and it was like to go up to like 4:30 something, and I was
Oh,
like,
shit.
I think that makes more sense for me to be like, I didn't realize we weren't moving, but second floor, you
I
should
was
have.
like, I guess I got to hit the button.
Yeah.
I was glad that somebody didn't hit the third floor while I was waiting. And then I would have been on the third floor like, this isn't it.
Wait, there were other people in the elevator who didn't.
Well,
No,
just like
no.
someone
I was the
from
only
the
one,
third
but
floor would have pressed
They
going
could have
down.
summoned it up.
Yeah.
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 And then you'd have been like, this elevator's broken.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like a big dummy right now.
Did anybody do Easter shit?
No.
We went
kinda,
to revolving sushi later in the evening, but otherwise I had the migraine, so no.
For Easter?
No,
like
it
it
wasn't
was-
for Easter. It was just like
Just on Easter.
it was just on Easter. Yeah,
Oh.
That's nice.
yeah. What about you?
Just did Easter shit.
No.
Too much stuff. Yeah. Look, I got some news, but I figured to pad out the time. Hagen, would you mind giving us your quick Mario movie review?
Oh yeah.
Do you want a timer? Do you want me to time this, or do you just want to pop off?
King.
What's an appropriate? What's an appropriate
Jackson
amount
just
of
went
time?
full Italian.
Like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you how about you just run a timer and I'll tell you when I'm done. We'll just see how fast I can get it done. Does that work?
works.
All right,
All
great.
right, go ahead.
Okay, so the Mario movie. I think it is a excellent, fun movie. It's really great. The voice acting generally pretty good. They have a pretty great early explanation about why the voices sound like they do. The animation is obviously great. The soundtrack is incredible. The guy who made all the music did like next level kind of job. I think the only complaint that I truly could have about the movie is the one moment where Donkey Kong sounds just like Seth Rogen. He just looks at Mario and does the Seth Rogen laugh, and it's like, okay, well, that was Seth Rogen. But otherwise, no complaints about the voice acting, no complaints about anything aside from just that. I thought it was a clean 90 minutes of fun, and I can't wait for them to do another one so I can have another clean 90 minutes of fun and nothing else. If someone walks in that movie and has a bad time, you don't like fun. That's it.
Ooh.
That's
Wow.
it.
How long was that?
That was 55 seconds.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I feel very passionately about the last thing I said right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had a feeling you were gonna be very contrarian about it. So
But what? But like
I haven't seen it.
Why?
I'm
like,
not.
The negative reviews are about like there's no story plot. There's it's like what do
It's
you
a Mario game.
you ever played?
video
Yeah, have
movie.
you ever played a Mario game? like what's the emotional attachment to these characters other than just like it's fun,
Yeah,
we love them, it's
right.
great. Yeah.
Is there a story to Mario Kart I don't know about? After like 12 years or whatever it is, or 12 editions or whatever they're on.
Yeah, and there's like there's stories to these things, but it's not like we're like
Yeah, it's
you
not
know,
a big deal. It's
yeah.
not a fancy story.
I could maybe get it if it was like Zelda. There would be if they made like those
Yeah.
kind of movies, but for Mario, no. I think that it's just about having fun. Should be at least.
What's the explanation for the voices?
The movie begins with like an ad for the Super Mario Brothers plumbing, and they all are like both them are doing like the super high pitched Mario voices, and then when the ad's done, they're talking to each other and like, do you think their voices are maybe too much? And so they like made it,
okay.
like
That's
they
pretty good.
they still have like a Brooklyn accent and whatever, but like they're trying to like they grounded it a little bit in reality, but only just like a hair.
Okay, cool.
How'd you feel about the needle drops? I've heard people like really hate those.
The needle drops.
Yeah, like the No Sleep Till Brooklyn,
Oh,
Take on Me, that they feel really out of place. I've heard people saying that.
I mean, it's a
Once
movie.
again, I have not
did-
seen the movie.
It's a movie by the Minions people. It's going to happen.
Right.
It did feel kind of out of place, I guess, but honestly, my only bummer was that it was just something that was playing instead of the soundtrack.
Which is
But-
what I was going to say to Adam is that, like, you're right. Illumination is naturally going to do that if you let them. But, like, there's so much, like,
Yeah,
It's-
there's a lot of cool stuff they
yeah.
can pull from. Yeah.
there's a lot of, like, Mario music that people just love. So,
and they did use all of it. Like it's in so many places. And then now like there's a whole, of course, Jack Black probably had in his contract he had to do a song, but there's a song where Bowser sings about Peach, and it is fucking great. And I hope truly that it gets an Oscar nomination. It is like
It's not gonna.
it is like so good. But like to me, that would be another thing that some people might find to be like pull them out of it because it's like too cheesy and corny. But it's like I think it's perfect.
It's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's funny. Like there are people that I like, reviewers who I thought are going to go into this and not be like, oh, this is the best movie ever, but be like, hey, this is a good time. Like if you have a family and that kind of stuff. But man, like the two specifically that I'm thinking of came out, and like one of them was like basically just saying like, oh man, like what's the point? Why do I do a video game podcast? This is all, if this is it, what's the point? Like this is so like, this like product is so nihilistic and just like it's so shitty, and I was just like, whoa, this guy. I didn't expect you to love it, and maybe you even didn't like it, but whoa, he apparently, they were saying like, yeah, in the car ride from the movie, because they like all the hosts had gone to see it together, and then like we're driving back, he apparently at one point just said, what's the point of all this? Why are we doing this? And it's like, God damn, you like get paid good money to do this video game podcast, and because of this movie, you're like second guessing it. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, boo-hoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really. I was talking to someone at work about it, and they were like, I feel similarly about this, that like how I'm explaining the Mario movie. They're like, I feel like people who went to see Cocaine Bear were expecting something different when it's in the title.
That was a great movie.
Cocaine Bear, and people are expecting like this truly like incredible. It's a Cocaine Bear, and I've heard it's great, but I've also heard people be like, oh, what the fuck, this is too silly or whatever. So
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah, I fully like. I will watch the Super Mario movie. Or what is it called?
I think it's
I think
just
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, is movie in the title?
I'm not sure, but
Man, I have to find out now.
Mario.
Oh God, it is the Super Mario's. Fuck me, the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
It's a me, Mario's.
I think
I will see it. I'm not going to see it in theaters,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, me neither.
I think I'm going to see it on a plane,
Yeah.
specifically when I'm flying somewhere this year. I was like, oh, that's a perfect like time killer.
the only reason that I saw it in theaters was I was like, this is like the perfect, because it is so short. It's the perfect, just go to a movie whenever I want to and just sit and shut off for just an hour and a half and enjoy pretty things.
I told myself that if I was going to see it, it had to be either opening night or like opening weekend, because I was like,
With the crowd.
that's when the shit posters are going to be there, and like that's going to be the most fun. I don't really care so much about the movie. I just feel like there will be this audience experience.
And genuinely, there were people walking out of that movie going, that's one of the best things I've seen this year. So
Nice.
people like fun. Some people do.
Turns out.
Any fans of Maggie Rogers? Speaking of
Yes.
illumination, the connective tissue, have you guys seen that? Like how Maggie Rogers, I don't know if this is how she got discovered, but it's how I found out about her. Have you all seen this video?
The Pharrell
Yeah.
video. Yeah.
Pharrell's doing like some like, I don't know if it's a master class or something like that, like a sit-in like lecture at a like, I think it's like NYU or something like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
And like he says like, hey, like somebody like, it was some music production class, so they obviously have their work on them, and like pick somebody out of the audience. She comes up and she like shows him the song she's working on, and he's supposed to like give her tips and all that and say like, here's what I would do songwriting wise, blah blah. And he basically just says like, song's perfect. That's incredible. And like it's just and it's Maggie Rogers.
Yeah.
And like I was just like, holy shit, that's got to like be like incredible to have this just mega producer who's probably also a vampire. Just sit there and say that about your music in front of your whole class. Or just be like, well, fuck, I guess I'm done.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he signed her, but like she obviously got signed pretty quickly after that. But any fans of Maggie Rogers?
Yeah, a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah. Haven't really spent any time really diving into her music, but with no problems with her.
Yeah. She announced a tour. I think with openers Soccer Mommy and Always. But specifically when she announced this tour, she pretty quickly, I think she has like a pretty rabid fan base, not like Swifties, but like tours gonna sell out, that kind of thing. And when she announced all the pre-sales and all that kind of stuff, and then I don't know if it was day of or like next day, she basically said, hey, There's been a lot of conversations about like buying tickets and like the whole like ticket fees and like dynamic pricing. What we're doing is what I'm calling box office day. And for the first day of pre-sales, you can only get tickets at the actual venue, which like basically her whole fans started like scrambling like, oh fuck, like I was just going to log on during work or some kind of thing like that. And now they're all like kind of all over the fucking place. And I don't know. I just like, I don't feel like it, like, I don't think it was like a bad idea on her end, but like, I just don't think that's gotta be the answer.
That doesn't
because she basically,
fees
well,
either.
she said it does. It gets rid of the fees. It's
don't know
just
if
the
that's
ticket.
accurate.
I agree because every time I bought the ticket at the door, if it's like $20, but
Right,
then
you
they
still
add
pay,
$10
yeah.
of fees, they always charge me $30.
Yeah.
But is it does it eliminate the dynamic pricing of the pre-sales? I thought that was the reason she was doing it.
I mean,
I don't know.
Can't you opt out of that anyway as an artist?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was
Allegedly.
I thought that was the whole point of why she was doing it this way, was to like eliminate dynamic pricing for pre-sales. But like we were talking about this over the weekend, and I was like, "Cool, didn't Nine Inch Nails do this already?"
Yeah,
Like,
and it didn't work.
yeah,
But I
And
don't
they
think she
did their next tour like normal.
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, like, The Cure recently, I don't think we mentioned this when we were talking about it, but, like, they made it to where you, on their upcoming tour, you can't transfer your tickets. Like,
Right,
you
right.
buy it, it's yours now. You can't transfer. Nine Inch Nails did that. I don't think Maggie Rogers is doing it, but I can only imagine, like, if I'm not taking off work to, like, I don't care who it is, even Radiohead, who I would die to see just in my backyard.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take time off work or anything like that to go to the venue.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Because
like,
it's not just you're going to the venue, here's my money, I go back. So
Yeah,
lunch hour, it's you wait in line.
For probably the whole day.
yeah, and we talked about it when Nine Inch Nails did this, but there's a lot of people who don't live in the cities where this is, so
Yeah,
they
they're
have
gonna
to like,
fly to the show
Right.
anyway.
or like they have to drive an hour or two to where it is. So it's like, I mean, I know a lot of people who drove for Taylor Swift. Imagine if they also had to drive to get their tickets beforehand.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's- sometimes I can understand artists doing something like that to get back at Ticketmaster, but this feels like a publicity stunt.
Well, and fortunately it is one day. It was
Yeah, of
just
course.
the first
Yeah.
day of
The opening
pre-sales.
day of pre-sales.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like there is
Yeah, I
that.
guess to be fair, Nine Inch Nails, that was the whole
Yeah.
tour, right?
So
All
like the
sales
next
dates.
day, and
Yeah.
then like also pre-sales, they set aside a certain amount. I don't know what it is, if it's like 50% or 60% of the tickets, but like if they sell out during pre-sale, there's always going to be that reserve for the general audience.
I suppose the idea is that a lot of these artists, probably Nine Inch Nails, were like, well, you used to have to do this no matter what.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just go back to it. It's not that big a deal.
It's like when my mom like talks about like, oh, I can't work my phone. What am I gonna do if my phone doesn't work? And I'm like, I think a majority of your life you didn't have one of those.
Yeah.
So like, hey, just think about that.
Just think about it.
But to your point about it being a way to get back at Ticketmaster, they still are going to get paid, even
Yeah,
if
of
there
course.
aren't fees
Right.
on there, because they have contracts with those venues and they're taking a cut of
Doesn't do
everything.
much.
So.
I think it's mostly to make things. The idea is to hopefully make things better for the fans buying tickets, give them
Yeah,
an experience where they're not gonna, I guess, not have the fees and also potentially not have dynamic pricing. But I mean, it
Feels like it's punishing them.
feels like it's like a Band-Aid, and it's a Band-Aid that doesn't have good adhesive.
Yeah.
Like it's like,
It's
feels
not
like-
going to do anything
It's
significant.
It also feels like it's a Band-Aid, like maybe designed by Ticketmaster to like help their
Yeah.
image right now because it's pretty bad.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been following.
not optimistic about it.
I haven't been following any of the Ticketmaster stuff. It felt like, you know, like the 2016 election. At some point, I was just like, I keep hearing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Somebody opens up an inquiry, blah, 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 is suing them. Like the city of LA or somebody, like a group of people in LA is suing over like Taylor Swift. And I was just like, God, I don't fucking know. It feels like there's just this like deluge of like just fucking information that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and we're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I have gotten
One or
to
two.
the-
It's going to have to be at like a government level.
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to purchase like at that scale anymore, unless it's like basically Radiohead's the
Yeah.
only one I would do it for. But like I was just like, I have tickets through Ticketmaster right now, but after those are done, like I think I'm like at the point where, and not to like punch the artist or anything, but just because I'm like, oh man, like it's a lessening of the experience every time. It just keeps rolling down. I'm paying so much more, and either the experience is staying the same, or I now have this extra pressure of like something I would have paid $100 for. Whenever it's now like $200, and I feel like pressure to enjoy, and I'm like, oh, this fucking sucks. Like, yeah. So I'm at that point where I'm not going to do anything. But then what sucks is like, so what I just said is like, oh, I'm theoretically going to only buy from it for the time being, like once every year to 3 years, which unfortunately, I think on these stadium levels, that's like a majority of the audience. Like when you're talking about a sold out arena for Taylor Swift or Metallica, those are people who are only going to a show once a year or once every 3 years.
Right.
So it's like
whenever those artists tour,
you're not like I think about my stance, and I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, I don't know too many people that go to a lot of concerts,
and especially one musicians. At a stadium.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
there's a handful of people I've known that have had that much money that they're just like, oh, I went to so-and-so last weekend. I'm going to this concert this weekend. Mm-hmm. It's like, but you're not even a musician. But, it's, not that that's the par for the course, but
right, yeah,
they just have that expendable money to go and do something that's entertainment for them.
I know somebody who went to Taylor Swift, and I know a lot of people who went to Taylor Swift, but most of them were like Swifties, like, fuck yeah, this is my whole weekend. Got a hotel room so I could avoid the 3 hours of traffic, that kind of thing. I knew two people, relationship will remain ambiguous, who were going, and they both seemed like they were hearing the information about 3 hours of traffic, how long the concert was, and they were like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, hey, you need to keep that down. Like, if the wrong people, especially because they had box seats, like they were right next to like Jerry Jones and that kind of stuff
last week, but maybe not.
Well, so I followed up with them and I was like, so how was the show? And they were like, yeah, so I went with like my best friend who has the box seats, and I basically like, I had a great time. We talked most of the concert. Like, I just like, I love talking to this person. So like, I had a great time, and I was just like, I was just smiling so much. I was like, there are people who like are spending so much money for shitty seats. You're in a box seat next to Jerry Jones, just talking the entire concert. Yeah. She was like, yeah. And then this song would come on, and we would know it, and we'd be like, yeah. And then we left like 5 songs early to miss the traffic. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. So fucking funny. I love
this. This fits with my whole thing about I don't like Dallas crowds, because it seems like so many people at like Bomb Factory specifically are just there to be like, I'm at an event where people are. Like,
the only reason I didn't say like talk about concert etiquette with this person is because they were in a private box, and I was like, okay, cool.
Then that's fine.
Yeah. The talking the whole concert is okay in this situation.
To go. You could just go talk and hang out. Like,
it was free for them
else.
Because I did ask them. I was like, well, if you don't mind me asking, how much was parking? They were like, free.
You get free parking passes. Boxes.
Free tickets. Yeah. Free parking. I was like,
it's more expensive to be not wealthy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that like, oh man, how I've never been in a box. I've never watched anything from a box. How do they hear it?
The box is open.
It's
open.
Usually
have it's just you have walls on the side. It's the regular seats. It depends on what type of box. So it's either regular seats with like American Airlines Center. It's just like regular seats with walls on the side, and then there's like maybe like a little like standing area where like you can put like a small catering setup.
Oh, okay.
There will be really nice ones, but they're on like the middle of the arena. They're not like close. They're not high up. They're straight in the middle.
Even the nice ones have like a balcony thing where it's like open air. So it's like you're in your own seats. You're just secluded from all the poor people.
It's like those like it's like those whenever like at the Olympics and you see like the royal family. It's like it looks like that.
Yeah. The
fuck.
You probably do get like a mixed like audio feed into the like the enclosed area.
Well, I remember I was in a box for a hockey game once, and that was like you could hear stuff, but as soon as you went into like the box area,
it's
like we could still talk and like hang out, and then if we wanted to watch, you just step back out, and then there's your seats, and then you're normally like it's like normal for you.
You know what I love? I love a venue that has the audio feed into the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
fucking
Oh, I love
think
that
that's
too.
great.
It's normally dog shit, which makes it more fun.
As you guys know this about me, I mean, Harvest House does that here in Denton, and I
Yeah.
love it.
And those speakers in that bathroom are just like,
And it's also like you're not
You at least have
missing.
something though. You have a
Yeah.
reference. For
Yeah.
what's going
What's
on.
weird about Harvest House is they're not like it's not the type of venue where it's like, oh, I might miss my favorite song type
Right.
of place. Like
Yeah.
bands like that aren't playing there. And I love it at like the musicals I go to. It's like I have the worst bladder in the world, and like I try not to drink before a musical, but sometimes I do. And so like sometimes I just have to go in the middle of one of the acts, and I get into the bathroom and they're playing, and I'm like, cool, I'm not missing too much. Like I'm not seeing it. And sometimes they'll have like depending on the venue, they'll have like a TV in the corner where you can just sit there and watch it. So you have like this row of urinals where all these men are just looking off into the corner. It's beautiful.
I've always thought that movie theaters should do that.
I thought that too.
Have
Yeah.
dedicated like bathrooms for each theater. It doesn't seem crazy.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. That would be great.
I would
If
pay.
only-
I would pay
yeah.
more money to go to a place like that.
Yeah.
There used to be a website that would like tell you like when you
Or
were
when-
about to go to
yeah.
when to go to the bathroom. Yeah,
I think that still exists.
yeah, I'm sure it does.
wait, like at what point in the movie nothing important
Yeah.
will happen?
So like
Yeah,
if
pretty
you're going
much,
to
like
see
the least important stuff.
if you're going to see the 3-hour Avatar movie and you're like, well, I just can't do that.
There's so much
When-
water in this movie, I'm gonna have to pee.
right. Like this website tells you like, hey, whenever Jake does this, like
yeah, whenever so and so says a line, like no,
whenever
you
he
can
gets
get
his
up.
blue dick out, like
Yeah.
go to the
got 2
bathroom.
minutes.
You have 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys, what do you guys call P. Diddy? What's his name?
Diddy.
Diddy?
Diddy.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, it's
I
Diddy.
didn't- yeah.
Whenever I was writing my notes, I wrote P. Diddy, and the article just kept saying Diddy. I was like, I guess I'm in the wrong
Yeah.
here.
He's been Diddy for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sean Combs tweeted that you guys may have seen this, but he tweeted that he pays Sting $5,000 a day for sampling.
Every breath you take.
Yeah, every breath I take without permission, which I didn't know he did that without permission. I think what happened is Sting basically, so Diddy retweeted this like interview that Sting had done about that song and goes, oh yeah, he pays me $2,000 a day because he sampled that without getting our permission. And so Diddy then retweets it and says it's actually $5,000 a day.
I'm gonna figure out what that is per year.
Well, I could tell you how much it would be from then to now.
Yeah, what's that?
$50 million so
Jesus.
far. So
I think I would just be like, let's just pull that song back. It never came out. We're not going to deal with
well,
this.
so here's the
God.
thing: is he tweets this and like,
That's
It's-
1.8 million a year.
it's obviously facetious. It's not real. Like
Yeah.
that's obviously, and like so basically, people were like going crazy about it, and then Diddy said, "Hey, I was joking. I don't pay this much. Like, also, Sting and I are really good friends. Yes, I sampled that without permission, but like, we're real good friends." But I think that's fucking hilarious that people genuinely think that he like,
yeah,
was paying
would
that
be
much.
paying that and wouldn't have been like the song is done. We're not.
Yeah, just
having that
pull it.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would get it for a little
So
bit.
much money.
Because like, isn't that like a tribute to Biggie?
Yeah, Notorious
Yeah.
B.I.G.
Yeah, because like I think it came out like a couple months after he died, and that's what the song's about.
But so it was probably just the guitar part that he sampled because the vocals, obviously, Sting's not in that song.
Well,
It's re-recorded
They do
vocals.
the like the kind of like the chorus, like a choir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I never think about the song, so I was just kind of like, man, $5,000 a day, dude. Maybe you just like yank that one off. Yeah, it's just it. I don't know. Which speaking of sampling without permission, this brings us into our topic. Here's another thing where we were talking about autotune previously, and then I said, hey, it'd be a great idea to talk about sampling, specifically because sampling seems to be not exclusively, but prevalent in rap music, which I think is kind of a blind spot for us, and especially like the early rap music when this was like trailblazing. I think that's more of a blind spot for us. I think it's safe to say none of us are like super big LL Cool J fans, except for maybe Hagen and me. But yeah, like I mean, there are groups like A Tribe Called Quest, but I think
Yeah.
that like we're a lot of us are latecomers to that. So there was a lot of just kind of wanted to talk about sampling and its origins, kind of the idea behind it, and then give kind of an example of I guess where we are nowadays with sampling. So what I found super interesting, I don't know if you guys read much about like the history of it, but did you know that like the mellotron, the like piano or like whatever you would call that,
It's a keyboard.
Yeah. It that's a sampling technique. That's what it's using. You press the key and it activates like a player head on a piece of tape, which it then activates the noise that it has, which then has, I actually just learned about this week, that keys have a thing called after touch, like sensitivity, to where like most synthesizers, like nice synthesizers now, like you'll play it down and it plays the same no matter what you're playing, it'll play that sound. But then once you fully express the keys down, you can press a little harder, and depending on what you set the key to or the parameter
The
to,
velocity, I think
it'll
it is.
do something.
Yeah.
So like what I was doing this week is basically I was like, hey, I want it to sound like when we're pressing the keys, I want it to sound like you're listening through a pillow, but I want it to slowly get louder. I was like, are we going to have to do that after the fact? Because I think that's actually a bad idea. Do you want me to ride the knob? And they're like, oh no, we can do it with aftertouch. And then like, I was like, what the fuck's that? And then they showed me, I was like, holy shit. So like mellotrons, apparently that's like a really like one of the first instances of it, because like when the harder you would play it, the like at the little player head would hit the tape a little bit differently, making it react, in a different way.
Yeah, and some of them you can add vibrato to a note.
Yeah.
too. Yeah. That's so cool.
I had no clue that sampling was part of that. So like there's all these like synthesizers. I would say that's probably, from what I've read, is that sampling became a thing, an idea, and a coined term, I guess, in like the 70s, when you're having these like Casio synthesizers you can like just sing into it and then it'll play it back. And
Like Stevie Wonder on Family, I think it was Family Matters, or it might have been.
I totally meant to bring my synthesizer to like do a little demo. Fuck me. Yeah, but like I have a bunch of patches on like my like synthesizer that I have that like it's me singing into it, or I've got like I heard a noise and I recorded it and it's now like it's a synth sound. Like,
Sorry, it was Stevie Wonder on the Bill Cosby Show.
Yeah.
wait, I'm sorry. What was this story?
He brought in a sampler and took a sample of someone's voice, one of the kids' voices, and it was like every key was a different pitch of that person's voice,
which is super cool. Like that's I wanted to show y'all that in real time. Get one of y'all to just talking to it. But yeah, so that's really where musically the sampling started. But then it became, I don't know where exactly this started, like where in the country, where in the world, but then they people started taking the the music, drum breaks is really where it started, specifically the Funky Drummer, which was a James Brown song. There's a drum break in the middle of it. It's just drums. There's no bass, nothing else.
Yeah, I would say it started on like both coasts. Like the Bronx was a big.
Yeah, I know New York was a huge.
Grandmaster Flash.
Oh yeah,
because they would be doing like DJ sets, and they would have the same copy of, say, the Funky Drummer, where they could they had the portion of the record of the vinyl where that break was, and then they could play it over and over again, switch back and forth between the things.
And so there's like one of the most sampled song of all time. By the way, there's a website called WhoSampled.com, which is super fun to go through, and it will tell you that you can just basically go Google. It's like a Wikipedia, but for sampling. So if you're curious about like Daft Punk, that kind of stuff, but like the most sampled song of all time is Amen Brother by the Winstons. Fourth is the one that I just mentioned, Funky Drummer by James Brown. So that James Brown one, and what's really interesting, there was that video I sent you guys where basically people started sampling that drum break and then rapping over it, putting their own instruments on top of it.
And slowing it down and speeding it up.
Yeah, completely making it their own. And then James Brown, after this, released a single which was just the drums playing. it was funky drummer, but like without everything else. And like
if that was Clyde Stubblefield.
The theory is that it's never been confirmed, but the theory is he did that. He's like, oh, this is really working out well for me. I'm gonna put this out so people buy this record, because like when we say sampling, that a lot of these people, it's actual turntables where they might have one that's doing just looping the drum break, and then they'll put like another sample on the other one. So
yeah, it was Clyde Stubblefield, and he got no credit for that.
Of course not,
but like.
But basically, as we're talking about, like where I'm primarily focused, there's a rap collective. It was Tribe Called Quest, Queen Latifah, and then the fucking band we're talking about today, De La Soul, and groups like that. I forget what that group was called, but it was just this kind of like collective of hip hop musicians who were all collaborating at the time, and it's all primarily sampled bass. And in that same area, you have like Rick Rubin, who's starting like Def Jam, and specifically at that time, obviously Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
So this band comes up, this group, this collective, hip hop collective, De La Soul. They released their debut album, 3 Feet High and Rising. And it's that they're putting samples everywhere. It's like they have a DJ who's putting together these songs, then they rap on it, they make it their own, that whole thing. And a large part of hip hop at this time. And did you guys listen to that record at all?
No.
There's a lot of
we didn't do the research.
There's a lot of like sketches. Have you ever listened to a hip hop record that has sketches in the middle?
Classic.
It's not as like prevalent now. Like I would say that like
Logic's new record just did that.
Yeah.
He has a bunch of sketches in between.
I wouldn't say this is sketches, but like The Weeknd, and also it's not hip hop, but The Weeknd did that kind of like Dawn FM segue thing.
Count. Yeah.
But like these early ones for like De La Soul, their whole thing is that they're on this record specifically, and they do this on other records, but like it's specifically they got together, they picked a day, they were already finished with the album, and they picked a day where they were all available, and they were like, hey, we're gonna do just like we're gonna come up with a sketch, like, and like just record a bunch of ideas. So they came with this idea like, oh, the theme is we're on a game show and we're just joking around with each other. So they did that in one day, and then like part of that, even like outside of the music part, they're sampling stuff. Like there's like Doctor Who sounds in the background, and a lot of this, because it was like the Wild West, there was no there really wasn't a like, hey, how do we sample things? How do we credit? How do we do that? Is this allowed? Is this illegal? That kind of thing. There wasn't that.
Because they were probably thinking like, maybe 200 people, 500 people are going to hear this record. It's not going to be a big deal.
They're literally in high school, and they're
exactly.
16 years old.
Yeah.
And so they're just having fun and just doing that. They're not thinking about it much. And then so they get to the point where they are ready to release it. They signed to Tommy Boy Records, who just is basically like, hey, we'll do this with you, but we got to figure out the sample situation. So they figure out a lot of these samples, but specifically they're doing like handshake deals. They're not getting like written. They're like, yeah, we'll like just pay us this much and you're good. A lot of those came back to like bite them in the ass whenever like sampling became a huge thing. But basically they released this record, and it's like it goes huge. Like everyone knows that they're like labeled like these like the black hippies, which is a thing they really didn't like. The record label had them add like an extra song on there called Me, Myself, and I, which is their most famous song. It's their creep, basically.
Yeah.
They got to the point where like at shows they would get the crowd to chant with them before they would start the song, "We hate this song." And then they would be like, we're going to play it for you, but you have to do this with us. So they would do that. And then also because that song had like a cleaner edge to it, like the record, like the album artwork is like flowers, and that's where it kind of got this image of like the black hippies. And they were like, we're not against that, but it's also kind of like, hey, that's not necessary. Like it wasn't given. We didn't get an idea for that, or we didn't get a choice.
It wasn't our intention.
So they released the album, and then it goes super well. And it was like one of, supposedly according to the record label, it was one of the like first like American hip hop albums that was doing well in Europe. Like it basically, they were saying like, oh yeah, you guys have to keep this up because like it's just doing so well. This, we've never, like, they couldn't get NWA or someone like that later on. They couldn't get anyone like that to be successful over there. It was uniquely American, and even then it was to a specific community, not even like America as a whole. So they released the album. A lot of these people come back and they were like, hey, you didn't clear this with us, and yada yada. With the amount of, there's a specific song by the Turtles, which like people know this song, and like in every like everything I had heard, people were like, oh yeah, it's this one Turtle song. I've never fucking heard it. But those they were the biggest ones to like sue them, and the biggest band to sue them.
Probably Happy Together.
Maybe.
Yeah. That would
No.
Maybe it was. But they did.
Yeah.
No, you're gonna guess fuck, dude. But basically, what was really unique about this is you had a lot of people sampling James Brown, funk groups, all that kind of stuff. There was an idea of what hip hop sounded like and dance music sounded like. But what they were doing, like in this record, they sampled Hall & Oates. They sampled Schoolhouse Rock. They were doing all these things of like, hey, yeah, hip hop can be that, and we are going to also do Funky Drummer, but we are also going to do this, and it's just like, it's fun. You don't take it seriously. This is just a fun record, and that's kind of the idea of the sketches in the middle. But they release it, and everybody's coming after them like, hey, no, you owe us money now because it's doing well. Specifically, the Turtles like asked for, I believe it was like $2 million, and that's like in 1989 money. So
Yeah,
it's a
would be a
lot of money.
Yeah.
They settled outside of court, but at this point, the record label said, nope, we're pulling it. We're not going to put this out. There's not going to be any digital distribution, anything like that. It's only physical.
Oh, right. Because even if they've sorted out the legal problems with the physical copies, like digital's a whole separate deal.
Yeah.
Years down the road or whatever.
And there's also like these deals apparently for sampling, you will get approved for specific things. Like I said, you could sample this song in your song for a commercial, but I didn't say you could do it for a CD. Or I said you could do it for a CD, but not for a vinyl. There's some weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
It gets really like detailed, and it got to that point. And basically there's like all these stories of like famous hip hop groups at this time. Specifically, the Beastie Boys were working on their follow-up, Paul's Boutique, which is like, people call that basically like the Sgt. Pepper's of sampling, because it's just wall-to-wall samples. And they saw what was happening with De La Soul and immediately like got all the samples cleared by everybody, and they got it like in writing and all that kind of stuff.
You do it before it's out too, and you can get
Right.
lower rates and everything.
And but like not only do it before they're out, but like get it in writing. Don't
Yeah.
it's not
Right,
handshake like
yeah.
here's $500. It's like
It's not.
I need
It's not the 1850s. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
Handshake deals don't work.
For a shilling
we'll try telling high schoolers
and a
that.
horse.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
You can't blame them for that first scenario because like
Right.
they couldn't have known any better. Like
Right.
that's not the kind of thing they could realistically be thinking about.
So the whole reason that I bring this up, this De La Soul, I want to say, so in 2023, it was this year, I forget the exact date. I think it was maybe a month ago. De La Soul, so for between 1989 to now, obviously they weren't on streaming for a while and weren't distributed in specific ways. Like Warner Brothers got their, I think Warner Media got their catalog and basically just stopped releasing it. So like they could only make money by performing. And then they were getting these like offers of how they could get around it, but they were whenever Tommy Boy then just the records acquired it again and basically said, okay, this is now in the streaming world. And they're like, we can do a digital distribution on iTunes, streaming, all that kind of stuff. We can do it. But De La Soul said, hey, we had a really good deal. And then they came back to us at the like last minute and said, hey, the deal is we're going to get 90% and you're going to get 10%. And even though we want everybody to have access to this, we just couldn't do that. And like, so it's basically their option was 10% or nothing.
Jeez.
And it's just like, in that situation, these people are being fucked over just, for the music that they make or their art. And so it got me thinking, it's now on streaming everywhere.
Did they have to re-record anything or take out any samples and adjust stuff? Because I would imagine there's a lot they couldn't get cleared.
I think some of the Doctor Who stuff got taken out. So that's this whole subject of like, there's this whole, and it specifically hip hop, and I'm sure there's a lot of dance music. It's the same way that has been changed or is not being cataloged in the proper way. Right. Like it is now, it's changing in a way that like, oh, this isn't the original album. So people who have pirated it or have gotten it on vinyl beforehand, it's a completely different album
copy.
Yeah, which can be cool, but it's also in this instance kind of like,
that's I mean, not to go back to Star Wars again, but like the same deal. Like they made the special editions. Supposedly Disney doesn't have the originals, and those are just lost forever.
That was part of the like purchase,
sucks.
Right?
Yeah,
to lose the original of something.
Well, it definitely. I would say like in the case of this especially, it sucks to lose the original of something. It's like with Star Wars, it's like that does suck, but we'd already gotten all the other special editions before.
I guess the thing is like it should be like at least archived somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
I guess Star Wars maybe is in the Library of Congress, but like this should be in that kind of same thing where like it should have copies that exist as they originally did.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's similar, but it's potentially substantially different.
Well, and it's like a pretty important like moment in time of like, hey, this is an album that did really well and got shit on.
Right.
People should look at this and learn from this, and not just like
like sue it into oblivion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so get this, in 2010, this only in 2023, this year, got digital distribution. In 2010, this was put into the Library of Congress.
Oh.
And you couldn't get the fucking record.
You probably couldn't ask
Isn't
for
that
it.
crazy?
Yeah.
So you have these people who like it, with all these hip hop artists and hip hop fans, people are saying like, hey, this is one of the foundational groups, and they're effectively being erased from history because of the way that they made their music. And I don't think they're, obviously, if we can clear in the right way, there's nothing wrong with sampling. It's a different way of doing it. They're not, I think whenever it came out, there had to be this idea of like, oh, you're taking my entire 3-minute song. It's like, no, I'm taking like 10 seconds at best, and 10 seconds is a lot. Yeah. Like I'm taking
it's
like
usually a sound effect or
or
like a
two
lyric
measures.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm putting you with like 80 other people.
Yeah.
Like it's not just you. No one's gonna know it's you, Rod Stewart. It's like everyone.
Well, like there's that. I mean, it's a newer example, I suppose, but like there's that Anderson .Paak song that uses a Hiatus Coyote song. It basically uses like the main section of like the verse.
Yeah, it's a lot of it.
Yeah, but like he even uses like the chorus when she sings at the end of the song and ends it that way. But I know a lot of people that know that. I put that on with a large group of people once, and they're like, "Oh, Anderson .Paak." I'm like, "Nope, Hiatus Coyote."
Hiatus Coyote.
but that's like. He still didn't even sample. Like he sampled like probably like you said like 2 maybe 4 bars of the song, and that's enough to be like Anderson .Paak made it a brand new thing.
Well, and even on top of that, like I have a friend who like a lot of he's a producer, and a lot of his music is sample based. And in high school, whenever he was doing this, he would show me his music. And I was like, dude, how the fuck are you sounding like that? I'm like barely recording a guitar, and he's like, oh, it's samples. And I was like, oh, and I had no clue. Like I had no clue what songs he was sampling, and they like broke it down to me one time and showed me the songs. I was like, "Oh, I know this song," but I didn't know. And it's the same thing. Like the most prominent example. Fucking everybody loves that Daft Punk album, Discovery. That album is like, I would say probably like 80% samples, and it has this like unique feeling. There's like all these like really famous dance songs on it, but you don't fucking know,
right? Because
they added so much production to it, and like some of these like. There's a song Face to Face on that album that like, yeah, it's being sampled now that I know what sampling sounds like, but man, it is so like, it's such a frantic production that I'm just like, this is a whole different thing. I have no clue. And like there are videos that like break down like, hey, this what happens here. This is what happens here. They will like they'll show in these videos like, oh, it flips backwards right here. They added this effect right here, and they'll add this and this, and it's just like, holy shit, that's a whole different sound. It sounds like a fucking whale now.
It's an art.
Yeah.
There's definite art to it. I remember when I was younger, I used to think like, oh, sampling is for people who don't know how to play music. And now it's just like, no, it's fucking art.
Well, I've tried to sample, and it's hard, and like it makes the assumption of the sampler that you have a vast knowledge of
like
the sound you're looking for.
What to pull and what
Right.
to take out. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I think about like sampling in general is the knowledge of like what can go over any sort of beat and understanding of BPM is something that is like really, really cool and specific. Like talking to my brother when he was in town about it, it's like he would have like a drum beat that he would make up and then try to find samples that were either already like in that BPM or stuff that just like happened to sound cool there. It's just like a really cool journey to like find like as a drummer, my understanding of BPMs is like, I didn't know numbers. But like I couldn't tap 120 for you right now. There's no way.
Yeah.
And it also, like, I'm sure for, like, specifically with your brother, he was telling us, like, oh, I don't know how to play. Like, I don't know, like, how to play a guitar or a piano. Like, I just, like, it's a grid to me. And, like, when I listen to his music that he puts up, I'm like, this is really fucking good shit.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't know, like, music in the way that we know it. I would argue he knows music, but it's just not in the traditional way.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, what you're saying about like the BPMs is just like you likely, if you're going about it that way and not modulating it, which a lot of people are, but it tells you like, oh, I've found this beat, or I created this beat that I really like that's in 90 BPM. I know that that's going to be a lot of ballads, so maybe this song's a ballad now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or if it's like, oh, it's 150 BPM. Okay, that's really fast. So like, okay, this is now like, it's probably going to be a big pop song or more aggressive song.
Yeah. Well, you talk about like even if modulating or quantizing something, even finding something and then modulating or quantizing to like a faster BPM that's maybe it wasn't like set to originally, still might sound like dog shit. Just like having the understanding of like, this is gonna sound cool if it's faster, this is gonna sound cool if it's slower, and like the trial and error you go through of that kind of thing. And especially like when you go back and look at sampling, like you guys talking about with like turntables, stuff like that. That is so fucking hard. That is like insanely difficult.
Yeah,
Like,
and so there's like people have this idea that like it's just hip hop that's doing it and that kind of thing, but like as I said, dance music, it's fully entrenched in dance music. And then there's people in the like indie world that like Bon Iver is doing this to like an extreme level. Beck has been doing it since the 90s. There's it's a part of like I think you could make a really cool country song that samples in the right way.
I mean,
I think you can do it anywhere.
You also
Metal
could-
music probably does this a
yeah,
lot.
it does. You can make the argument, like, I know we said sampling was like started in like the 70s, but you could make the argument that sampling in a form has been happening for hundreds of years.
Yeah, they've been doing it on cave walls. The
Yeah.
first thing that they drew was a turntable. Maybe
like-
it was boobs, but it looks like a turntable to me.
The idea of like I'm sure we've talked about like the like musical quoting before, but like the idea of like someone hearing like a symphony that someone else wrote and then using a line from that symphony in their own and played on the same instrument in the same
Yeah,
key
it's-
is more or less sampling. Like
Yeah.
it's
It's
this,
the natural way to like make more stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
What's weird to me about this is so like there was a lot of people saying, and I don't know if this is hyperbole because as I said, I hadn't heard of De La Soul until they released their catalog on streaming this year. But like there were some people who were saying like this is like hip hop's Beatles coming to streaming. Not saying like they are like the Beatles, but like whenever the Beatles came to streaming, iTunes and then all Apple Music, all
Not
that
just
kind of stuff.
Streaming just to like digital music in general.
Yeah.
Right. And that was like this huge thing. And like it was everywhere. Apple was like, this is our thing now. That people were saying like, this is that for the like early hip hop community. And I was just like, it's so weird that like that's a thing. And I knew about the Beatles before they were on digital streaming. I had never heard of this group. And
Yeah.
it's just like, it made me really think about like, wow, if something's not on streaming now, and we're talking like broadly here, so go with me. But like if something's not on streaming, it is almost effectively erased from history.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and like,
And that's so
Well,
scary.
and that's
Yeah.
very different from like the Beatles not being on a digital store in whatever year that was. That's very different. Everybody knew the Beatles, like you were saying, but also like digital music wasn't the only way that everybody was listening to music.
right.
Streaming is like it's pretty much the only way anybody's listening to music now, and
Yeah.
at least will be anyone in the next like 30 years.
And like Tool was the same way when they came to like digital music. It was a big
Yeah,
deal,
that's
but people
fair, yeah.
knew Tool.
Yeah.
And like, it was just like I was thinking about like you have to think that like with sampling, it is traditionally a hip hop thing, which is a largely a black community based in this early day. And you have to think like it's erasing these artists and stuff in that way. And that's probably why people aren't caring about it.
Yeah.
And it just like it bummed me out in this like whole way. But then it got me kind of thinking of like, okay, well, have I ever listened to something that I didn't have access to, whether it be YouTube or whatever, before streaming? And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah. There was this Italian metal band that I was super into called Stormlord. And they had this like song called I Am Legend that I was super into. And I was like, I want the album, but I couldn't buy it anywhere. So I had to import it from Italy. I paid so much fucking money for that.
Yeah.
And I think it was like
How much money?
I think it was $40 or $50, and I'm like a kid. I'm like in middle school at this point.
Yeah,
So
that's like $1 million.
yeah,
Yeah.
like $40 or $50 for like a CD that like really I only remember one song off of. Yeah, crazy. So I remember, but I have this fondness. I don't listen to them at all anymore, but I have this fond memory of like the hoops I had to jump through. I went to my local record store and I told them I want this, and they said, okay, like this is shipping, blah blah blah, we can get it for you, but this is how much it's going to cost. Gave them money and they said, okay, cool, we'll call you when it's here. And I was like, that was fun. There's a Japanese band that I'm super into now.
Sorry, what was the name of that other band you just mentioned?
Stormlord. And the song is I Am Legend. But like there's a Japanese band I'm really into right now called Number Girl, and they have I think 4 or 5 albums total. They have one of them officially released in America. You can listen to them on YouTube. But all the physicals are in Japan, and to get them from Japan, they know people want them, so they're like jacked up really high.
Yeah.
I'm going to Japan later this year, so I'm like, I told like my partner, I was like, I'm not really gonna buy a ton of like souvenirs, but that's the thing I'm gonna buy. If I can find Number Girl like vinyl or CD and I can get all of it, that's gonna be my portion of the suitcase coming back. That's my thing. And I was thinking like that there is that kind of fun. And so I did there was a little like diving I went into to see, did people do that for De La Soul? And yeah, it was a huge part of it. Apparently people were like, yeah, these are the things I had to do for it. And like, I'm really happy that people have it at their fingertips, but there was this kind of like one of the albums, like this specific person was writing about what it means to them that it's that De La Soul is now on streaming services. And they basically were saying like, yeah, there was like the album that got me into them is like most people say is their worst album. But like the hoops I had to jump through for that, that's like my favorite album of theirs. And I still to this day love it. And they were just kind of saying like there is that kind of like with streaming that you don't get that same like sense of ownership or sense of like, hey, I've committed this much effort to just getting it, so now I have to like it, right? And I think about that and I was like, wow, I definitely do that with streaming. I listen to maybe about 3 to 5 albums a day, and a lot of that Fridays I only listen to new music that's released that day. And so like sometimes I'll listen to like 9 albums that day, but then I just like don't listen to them again if they don't really like do something. I was like, that sucks. That sucks that like now that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I know that that's from streaming. It's not like oh, the world is changing. It's like, oh, it's because I now use streaming in this way.
Yeah, I mean, like talking about like the hip hop community and the journey of finding stuff, it's a little bit different now. Streaming, I'll say more than a little bit different. But like one of the biggest ways that hip hop acts released music, and it might be because of the difficulty of sampling, and this is a way around it, was by releasing mixtapes, and they were largely underground. They were largely things that were just found in the community. I remember there was a time when like in middle school when I was really really into rap and hip hop, and I got like a cut of some mixtape off of some whatever like illegal site, and I was like, I need this like actual, and I couldn't find it. It's impossible. And some of them have been uploaded to streaming like since, but like for the most part, mixtapes are like that was, it could have been, I wonder if it was like a response to like partially like the sampling issue, but that was part of the journey of like being a hip hop fan, was like, I gotta go find this.
I would say it was mostly it was probably that, but it was also like the artists themselves would make these physical tapes and like give them to people at shows or give them to promoters and say, hey, listen to this.
Well, and largely though, one of the cool things about like the mixtape world was, it was like, okay, hey, we're doing this one-off release. It's me and this other guy, or it's a diss thing, or it's like it was a really vast part of the, I mean, it still is really, really big part of the community, but it is largely like on streaming now. So
Yeah.
I remember like this being a big thing in the I would say like early 2010s rappers, so like Kid Cudi and Mac Miller specifically. I remember this being a thing of, at that time, the way I was getting my music, if I wasn't buying it physically, it was through YouTube. And I remember there being, and then I would do these like YouTube converters to MP3s and put it on my phone or my iTouch, or probably my Zune at that time. And I remember this being a whole thing of like, yeah, they had their records that were coming out. Like Mac Miller for a while, I was super into him before he released his first record. And it was all mixtapes. And on top of that, outside of like the mixtapes, there were these songs, like specifically Kid Cudi had this, like it was, I think somebody had basically produced this like sampled track of a live Lady Gaga playing Poker Face just on piano, and like she's just saying pup poker
I know
face.
exactly what you're talking about.
And like that's not on an album, it's not on a mixtape, but it was this sampled thing that like Kid Cudi basically freestyled over it. And I remember, like, I vividly remember listening to these songs heavily, and that was a super popular way of like, I'm gonna release a song really quickly. I'm not going to make money off of it, but I'm going to start getting my name out there. Because Mac Miller, I think he had like, it was something like, I'm looking at it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it was like 5 or 6 mixtapes before he actually released an album.
I think Chance the Rapper did that too.
Yeah, Chance the Rapper definitely did that.
I think he's only had like 2.
I was gonna say, I think he's only had one album, right?
Yeah.
1 or 2 maybe.
And it's just wild thinking that like you have like 5 things that like are just like, this is me building my name. It's such an old school way of thinking about it, especially when we're talking about the 2010s, when I'm just like straight up like ripping it off the internet.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm okay with that. That's part of this. That's part, like, I'm giving this out
It's
for
part
free.
of the like experience of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just, it's crazy now that like, okay, the more savvy people are seeing that and being like, okay, you're gonna get it. So like, I'm totally like, I'm not even gonna worry about clearing these songs because I'm never gonna make money off of it. But if I can make the best song I can, I don't ever have to pay Celine Dion. I just need to use her music. You guys will have it. And then whenever I actually put something out that is fully me, or I sample in the like the right channels, then you'll come to me in that organic way. And what I pay to sample that will pay off. But then you think about these early hip hop, like there's got to be so many more that we just don't know about. And like De La Soul is, as they were saying, this is like the hip hop Beatles for them.
Right. It's the biggest one. Yeah.
You got to think of the mid-size to the lower, like that. That's just crazy thinking that like, I've been thinking a lot about like historian, like in the non-traditional way, like not like, oh, we're looking at like, you know, theology,
the great wars of history.
Yeah, great wars, theology, all that kind of stuff. I've been thinking about like video game historians, internet historians. Like the internet is such a young thing, and people, because of that, it doesn't get the kind of like, we're not cataloging it in the way you would, you know, printed media.
I think I'm older than the internet.
Yeah, I
don't think that's.
I think
I'm not sure if that's
I
true
don't
either.
think that's true.
But
but like
to your
in
point, though,
music's
like,
the same thing. It's just like, that's crazy.
Especially music that's not officially available anywhere. It's harder to like to archive it, for lack of a better word. The same thing with
I'm not older than the internet.
Yes, good for you.
but like for video games, for example, and this extends to like just software in general, like it requires the physical thing to play it on.
Mm-hmm.
it's very complicated. Like, how do you even archive all that? You have to have working like video game hardware, and that's the whole thing. And this kind of fits in that like equivalent of it for music. It's like it's too hard to legally figure out how to archive it. How does that work for anybody?
Well, and like you talk about like how many people went like just didn't make it like or like
how much is
mid-size,
just lost
right?
to time.
But like if you watch like any documentaries about like the old rap and hip hop scenes, there's a lot of like things we'll talk about like these legendary rappers that were part of like communities that were like, you know, like whether it be like Tupac or Biggie, like part of their communities, no one knows who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think about bands like even in our community, and not that like we really right now have anyone in the Denton community or DFW community that has like risen to the ranks to like say like, oh, this is, check these bands out. But I think about bands that I'm like, were incredible, formative for me, that are no longer bands. So like Criminal Birds. And I think about like,
they have recorded music too, but that's a whole other thing of like, there are tons of bands and rappers and stuff that never recorded anything. Like there's no record of it at all.
Speaking of, say hi to Taylor, because he's probably listening.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
But I think about like these like formative bands to me on a smaller level, but then also like on that level, like an artist. Like I feel like people are always talking about like Tom Waits and stuff like that as an influence for them. And it's just like, yeah, but like the general population doesn't listen to Tom Waits and that kind of stuff. And I think about like, man, who's getting erased from history? And is that okay? Am I okay with that? That kind of thing? Because like, you know, are you doing it to have a lasting legacy, or are you doing it because you genuinely like the act of creating?
I think like high schoolers who made something really cool getting punished for making a mistake and then being erased from history is not an okay thing.
Right. And being as influential as they are, it's surprising to me that the, you know, artists or labels that are involved with what they sampled just didn't say as like a goodwill gesture, like, yeah, it's fine, we'll just forget
don't
about
do it again.
Right. Well, and not even that, but like just put this on streaming, and how about nobody makes money on it? Like, maybe they would be cool with that. I don't know.
Maybe for them now, the fact that it's on streaming and because you were saying they had to keep performing to keep making a living, presumably.
They are technically still a group. So
maybe this will be some sort of like a retirement.
So, and here's the sad thing
like
about this.
1/5 of a cent.
So they had been given.
That's so deflating.
They had been given the you know, opportunities to put their music out in a digital way and all that, but they kept saying like, no, we're getting fucked over just because you know our situation and know how quote unquote desperate we are. We have to set the precedent that you can't do this to people. And so good on them for doing that. But like at the end of the day, on the personal level, you have to wonder if it was worth it for them, because so there's 3 people in the group. One of them passed away like 2 weeks before.
Yeah. Fuck.
So what's bright side is that these things don't happen in 2 weeks. They didn't put it out because he passed away. He had to have known this was coming. It's just super sad that he didn't get to see that day. Because
or see the impact it will have.
It was a huge thing when it came out. I remember that's why I'm talking about it. Why I've listened to all their albums now is because people were talking about it. Like my favorite band, Coheed and Cambria, they were talking about it. The 2 like most prominent guys, the guitarist and the singer, they were both talking about like, yeah, we're from New York and we remember listening to this when we were growing up. So we went to the store and bought it on vinyl. I was just like, okay, I'll check this out. Everybody's talking about it, and now this like prog rock band is like now talking about it. Okay, there's definitely some crossover here.
Yeah.
So it's super sad, like, but you have to like think like on the personal level, was it worth it to them that like he didn't get to see that day, but also knowing that they did like really hold true and like did set a good precedent. Right. I don't know what the actual deal was.
Basically, yeah.
Clearly they accepted. You have to wonder like where did they give, and like some of it had to have been like, hey, you have to re-record these things.
Right.
This song's a little different, that kind of stuff. But you have to hope that they're getting a fair business side of it.
Yeah.
But all in all, like as I said, if you're one of those people that you're like, oh yeah, I'm just not into that like early sampling hip hop, as I was saying, like, you know, like the LL Cool J's, Tribe Called Quest, all that kind of stuff. That song, Can You Dig It? That what's that song that it samples? The
that's Lou Reed, Walk on the Wild Side.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So like super famous, and like I sing that song, I say, "Can you dig it?" and everybody around me,
Yes, you can.
yeah, like super famous.
Yeah.
That's like a party trick you can pull out anywhere, and then immediately you've broken the ice. And so, like, if that's not your style, as I said, dance music like that, like especially the European dance music of like the 90s and 2000s specifically, just go listen to Daft Punk. That's all sampled. There's so many great videos showing you like, hey, this is what's sampled here and this is how it's
Well,
done.
I mean, like I think about like seeing clips from like EDM festivals from like 2010 to now, and some of the biggest moments of those festivals is when a DJ will start playing like a SpongeBob clip, and then there'll be a huge drop into whatever like the big moment of the song is, and then there's still a SpongeBob sample that pops out during like the breakdown. It's like those kinds of things are, but like you said, huge in like dance music, and are really like they're probably one of the most important things to EDM.
This just reminded me. Did you ever listen to like metalcore music? Like I wrestled a bear once, that kind of stuff. Yeah. That was a huge thing in that scene of sampling like movie clips.
Quotes from movies.
Yeah.
The band, God, I think it was Dr. Acula.
Yeah.
They had this specific song that quoted the like Goodfellas, I remember growing up, I only wanted to be one thing, a gangster. And then it just starts this like really heavy song.
Man, that was such a prominent thing to do in the emo hardcore culture.
Yeah.
Enter Shikari was huge at this because Enter Shikari like had a keyboard player that also played like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Slipknot was using samples.
I've seen bands that had a keyboard player that didn't play notes.
Yeah.
That only triggered samples.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead a little bit, but like Linkin Park also was doing that. Literally, I was watching their Live from Texas DVD this week, and like they cut over to Joe Hahn, Dallas's own Joe Hahn, and like I'm thinking like, okay, he's gonna have a digital setup. I know it's like early 2000s, but he'll have a digital setup. No, dude's got fucking crate full of records. I was like, what
that
the
shit is
fuck?
crazy.
Him and Mike Shinoda are sitting there just like swapping records. I was like, what are you doing?
It's one like as
Metallica's on next, dude. Stop.
it's one thing to have be a DJ and have a Rolodex, I guess you could say, of like songs in your computer.
Yeah.
But to have crates is like fucking insane.
That makes me so nervous. Like the local theater that I go to, the Texas Theater, they'll typically have a DJ out there at the end of the night, just kind of like spinning records. And it's not like the kind of what we're talking about, like record scratches or anything like that. But I see them like they have a crate full of like maybe 20 or 30 records. I'm like, oh God, that's stressful. And like they're queuing them up, and I was like, how do you get them perfectly lined up? Like I can't even fucking do that.
How do you keep track of what song is when too?
It's incredible.
It's
encyclopedic.
Definitely that. If no one's ever used like any sort of like DJ like module and like with the headphones, like seeing how that works, it's super duper fun. Like it is
very creative.
Yeah, I've used one board that didn't have It had like basically like the size of where vinyl would go, but it wasn't actual vinyl. But you still had to do all of the timing stuff on the board itself. It wasn't a computer. You would like download stuff into the board. But yeah, it's like very very like the placement of the needle is the toughest part. But that's also again why you have headphones, because then if you don't place it right, you can hear it and then put it exactly right. Yeah,
there are faders for that only play in the headphones.
Yeah.
But it must have gotten better because we have people like Kanye West, who is really good at sampling, and that's a big part of his production style for his own music.
Like
and for
famously
other
that song "Strange Fruit."
Yeah,
for the song from Yeezus, "Blood on the Leaves." It's like it's a masterclass use of that song.
So maybe De La Soul served as the what not to do, and hopefully it's gotten better.
Right. In the worst case scenario, that is it. And it's just unfortunate that there's like casualty.
Well, there still are, because there's a lot of like young beat makers, like talking to my brother about this. It's like he puts his beats up for people to use, but it's like there's still like a lot of risk and using the wrong sample.
It's another reason why people that are coming up in any genre of music should get to know the history of that music.
Yeah.
There are some rappers, I've seen Lil Yachty, I think it was, say like, why do I need to know about Notorious B.I.G.? Like, fuck those people. They're the old people. It's like, well, you could learn a lot from them. Yeah. It's not just knowing their lyrics. It's knowing what they did to get ahead in the business.
There's I forget which rapper it is, but I want to say it was like Danny Brown was talking about like, I think it's one of the like Wu-Tang guys. But it was one of those like formative 90s rappers who Danny Brown was like, yeah, that dude's like prolific. I'm like always amazed in what he's making. And just talking about like, dude's always making stuff and it's always the best
Oh,
stuff.
it might have been Scarface.
Maybe it was, but like they were saying, like Danny Brown was saying, like, yeah, like he showed me like 3 records he has done, and I was like, why haven't you released these? And he said, oh, I have this bad habit of like I'll be on tour, I'll go to Jamaica or something like that, and they'll have those like $1 like penny records, so I buy 100 of them, and then I just like I listen to them and then I sample them, and I forget which ones I use. So like,
Damn.
and like Danny Brown was like just saying like this dude's got like the 3 of his best albums just sitting there because he doesn't know how to clear them, that kind of stuff. And I was just like, that sucks. Just thinking that like it's just sitting there, and like the guy wants to release them, but it's just like, I can't. So on to something different.
Yeah.
It's just crazy stuff that we really don't have to think about whenever like we're just writing in a room together. And
Well, yeah,
it's
because
like,
we can police each other and go, hey, that sounds like this song. Let's
Yeah.
maybe not be that direct.
yeah,
You have that. You
Just
also have that
interesting
weird
stuff.
crossover of. I don't like bringing these people up, but Kid Rock sampled or rearranged that Metallica song. They also did that with Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure they had to. That's some sort of like live band rewriting the song, sampling.
Dave's
thing.
bringing up Kid Rock
and Kanye. I know, and
Yeah.
Bill Cosby.
I'm gonna give you a cancel.
But
buck
these
for
are
that.
I'm fine
these
with
are all
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I
unfortunate.
mean, he's not saying they're good people.
no.
I just flew on the plane.
It's just we hit 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah,
That's
that's fair.
pretty much
yeah,
it. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
out. I was out long ago.
yeah, it's
He's
interesting.
older
stuff.
than the internet, you know.
Yeah, I'm not though. The internet was 1983. I think I'd read.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like,
I'm not that old.
You're still old, Dave.
I'm old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my like closing thought on this is that like if you are only a streaming person, there's more out there that like for one reason or the other, like that Japanese brand. I don't know if it's just like that their label is just like fuck it, we don't care, they're not a band anymore, or if it's just like there's like some reason behind it.
Well, to that point, that makes me very concerned about the future of a lot of music on streaming. Is there going to be a point when a label is like, oh, well, you know, Foo Fighters aren't a band anymore, and nobody gives a shit about
That
them in the year
happens.
2058 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That happens if it like obviously in the scenario of like, oh, if a band member does something heinous,
Right.
there are examples of like bands being, if they're not a big enough band to like, R. Kelly's music is still everywhere, but like there are like smaller bands like this band Power Bottom specifically, one of their members got in a big like, I don't remember all the details, so I'm not going to recount it, but like basically everyone's like, no, we're not listening to this band anymore. You guys shouldn't, you need to be held accountable for your actions. They had just released their record like a week ago, pulled from the internet. It's gone. And like in this instance, it's like you can make the arguments like, should it be there, etc. But like it is like on the other, like we saw this last year with Warner being acquired, or like I think it was Warner Media was acquired, and then like you see on HBO like all these. What's that
Yeah,
fucking Catwoman was canceled, or sorry, was it Catwoman or
Yeah,
no,
it was-
Batwoman?
Well,
sorry,
not even
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
being canceled, but like
but
big shows like Westworld is not on there anymore, which is just weird.
And it's the same
And that's,
thing.
That's going to happen for streaming movies and TV, and that's like I get it. It's going to happen to music too, and that's still the reason that I have like a local library of music files, even though I have
Yeah, that's smart.
because title and everything is like I'm still downloading, you know, definitely not legally purchased copies of some things that I'd like to keep in case something happens in the future as a
but I'm with you.
you know a librarian or archivist or something.
Yeah.
for
I think I've
legal
strayed
reasons.
too far.
yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I'm starting to realize that with
Well,
this
'cause,
whole
like,
saga.
something is gonna disappear that you wanted to listen to, and then everybody's gonna be like, "Oh,
Well,
this
like,
is what happens now." Like
as-
that was the thing for me with Apple Music was like one of the David Bowie albums disappeared, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like that's something that I bought, and now
Yeah.
it's gone. Like, all right, I'm done with this.
that happened to me this week. I was like trying to listen to the Klaus Nomi records, and like I was like, oh, they're not on streaming anymore. What the fuck?
Right, they
like
just
so I had to
disappear
go
one day.
I had to just go listen to them on YouTube on like this terrible rip of it. And then like with that like HBO thing, like outside of like things just being canceled, which is a bit different, but like as you were saying, but like it's a huge thing with animation. Like animators are
Right.
like there's this guy Olin Rogers that I've been like following since like YouTube days, and then like I think the show is called like Final Space or something, but had like 3 seasons, and like it was like his like child, And basically, as part of this acquisition, it was on HBO Max, and like they just like they took it off.
Right, they just
There's no
canceled the deal.
physicals.
Yeah.
You can't watch it anywhere unless it's like on that like freecartoons.com.
Right.
Well,
That's the only place you can watch it. Imagine your entire life's work right there just being taken away and written off as a tax credit.
Yeah,
That's fucked.
Well,
That's
and
crazy.
The no physicals thing is probably going to be a bigger deal for music. It's obviously not now. Most things will get made into a physical release of like a CD or something, right? Because it's not that big of a deal to do that. But you're not going to be able to find that for a small band.
Well, I mean, like the people are still doing like the CD stuff, but like it's becoming a lot less.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's going to
Yeah.
be a point where it stops, where it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Netflix
Yeah.
doesn't publish their shows on, a DVD.
Oh yeah, If Netflix takes it off Netflix and it's
doesn't
their
exist.
It's
thing,
gone.
it's
It's
gone.
Gone. Yeah,
well,
it's gone.
and there are like a lot
It's
of
more
those. Like I
complicated
remember
than that.
House of Cards being everywhere,
Well,
and
it's,
like
it's more complicated than that. It depends on the other
Yeah.
production companies, like whoever
but
produced
the smaller ones
House of Cards.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the maybe. I think it's part of the problem with cancel culture at some point. Like maybe, obviously,
Damn, you're really trying to get these.
Fuck. I really, what was the guy's name on House of Cards?
Kevin
Kevin
Spacey.
Spacey. I think I've heard that was a great show, and I might want to watch it.
It is. The first 2 seasons are a good show.
Right, but just not having that option is like fuck. And again, you might be able to watch that show and go, why was that gone? If our kids ask us that,
this
why is
gets
that gone?
into the like artists separating art from art.
Yeah. Which
artists.
it's hard to talk about it because I don't condone any of the actions from any of
Right.
these people.
Well, in the context of like a band, though, if one person is bad and is canceled, that's
Yeah.
a whole nother problem of like if the label decides you're too much of a risk, they're going to just your band's going to not
Scrub
be
it.
on
I'm
it.
not gonna-
I don't know
I'm-
if- I
I'm
think
not
it's
gonna get-
cautionary.
I'm not
It's
going
a
to get
whole-
into the
obviously it's a whole topic. But
There's details I'm not going to get into in this situation, but there's the band Lost Prophets. If you guys don't remember it, they were huge. Like a UK, like I would say that was kind of that emo scene, but they had that song that's standing on the rooftops, everybody scream your heart out. The singer, if you've never looked him up, did some really heinous stuff, like children, that kind of stuff. And he's in jail right now and will probably be for the rest of his life. There's
if
this,
he makes it out.
but the music is still there. It's still everywhere, and like the band members talk about, like, man, I can't even listen to my own music, that kind of stuff. And there is that kind of like, yeah, like, should this be here? Can you separate? Like I don't fault anybody for liking Harry Potter.
Right.
I despise J.K. Rowling is clearly an angry woman. She's very angry.
Yeah.
And has some very like just terrible ideas. But like I don't fault people for like liking Harry Potter. It's like I'm fine with that. It's a delicate situation.
Yeah.
Charles Manson is still on Apple Music.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Like I
just
knew
checked.
that. I remember like people like sharing that kind of stuff of like, oh yeah, have you ever listened to Charles Manson? Like Edgelord saying like it's actually pretty good music, and it's just like, okay, but it was like on YouTube. I didn't know that it was like on streaming. Wow.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you're talking about like artists, whether or not like when we're just talking about music and whether or not a band or an artist should remain on streaming, it does come down largely to like if the record company sees it as like too much of a liability, right? But like to me, the large like the people yelling is like fuck cancel culture, fuck cancel culture. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well maybe blame the company because they're not willing to
right.
or to like understand that this company is like taking the like they're doing the private company thing where they go, we'd rather like look better than not, and it's just like it's a weird toss up. I think that it should be just up to the person if they want to listen to the music, and it's really tough to draw that line of like, hey, let's take it down. I mean, some stuff I think it'd be really smart to take R. Kelly shit down, but like. That's a personal thing.
They also like money.
Yeah, that's a personal thing. But if someone else was like, I want to listen to R. Kelly stuff, then I think like, yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Just as long as
then you could enact certain laws that are like, okay, R. Kelly stuff is still up, but the rights holders receive no money from it.
Right. Something like that.
Things
could,
like that.
could be
Or it-
figure out. It's obviously complicated.
or
to,
just,
to
or
do
it just
that,
moves or just has to move to a different rights owner,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Because I don't know. I think it's
just to the label or something, and not at all to the artist.
I
kind
think
of thing.
really it's the database of having knowledge for what is an example of a bad thing and examples of good things instead of just getting rid of all of the bad things and trying our hardest to forget about them.
And by the way, I think it's important to like just give a quick recap of how we got to what we're saying now. we were talking about how streaming, how it's crazy how things can come and go really easily.
Well,
And
like we haven't hit that point where a lot of stuff is disappearing from music yet.
Yeah.
We're at the point where like a lot of stuff still isn't on there, but eventually it's going to shift to where labels are going, well, it cost me, 12 cents a day to have this album on
and it's
Tidal.
not
We're not going to do that.
producing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff. There are certain media, like video games. I think you and I play different types of video games. Like I think you're primarily playing online video games, correct? Where like there is no physical version of Valorant, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it is fully, you just download it. It's free, done.
I maybe about 3 years ago just fully decided I don't need the physical copy. I don't care about it. I also like the argument that like, oh well, then you don't own it. It's like, well, what you're owning is just like an access code. It is a key. It's not the actual game.
They could disable it anyway.
Right. And so like I've really moved away of like I don't care. I'm not a physical guy when it comes to video games anymore. And I'm totally, and like people do make that argument of like, hey, it just happened with Nintendo. They took away the 3DS eShop. So like you can't buy any games on the 3DS eShop anymore. And there are games that are locked on that video game console because it has a 2-screen format that you can't port it without it doing a complete
rethinking of the
you have to
thing.
redo the whole game to put it on Steam or on a different Nintendo console.
So why did they shut down the store? Does Nintendo not
Because
like money?
Nintendo hates its customers is the
that's
genuine
fair.
answer. Genuinely, like this is a whole nother thing, but I'll talk to you about that later.
I mean,
Nintendo clearly doesn't want people to buy their games.
Right, they don't like money. Yeah.
Clearly they're just dickheads. But they basically I just like got away from it because like that's a great example of like there are specific games that like people are like these are all timers that I now can't play unless I get a physical copy, which now went from like $30 on the used market to $100. Like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But like, it doesn't bother me this idea that like, oh yeah, I have God of War 2 on my PS5, and like just one day they could take it away from me. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. There's certain media where I'm just like, you can take it away from me. I played it. I'm done. Yeah,
Right.
So I definitely see how. Because I feel that way about video games.
Oh, it's definitely how a lot of people feel about music.
It's how people feel about music, movies, TV, anything. And it's like,
I see a lot of. I've actually
see how it happens.
I've actually seen people get pissed that something is not on streaming or got taken down, and then like a day later they're fine.
aren't the? Yeah, well, yeah,
That's kind of the reaction that I see from that. So it's like to take
it's not normal to be like me and just be like, fine, fuck you, Apple Music, I'm not doing it.
right to take it to like Netflix and shit. When a big show is removed from Netflix, there's 1,000 of those articles that are like, you have this many days to watch The Office until it's gone, and then it's on whatever Peacock or whatever it's on.
New Girl is about to leave Netflix.
Yeah, right.
Like I think those like Marvel, like I remember those being huge on Netflix,
Disney
and like I think they're
started
gone.
It's all on Disney. It's all on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Before Disney Plus came
Yeah.
out, they did that.
But the whole
These are just gone.
the whole thing.
They've been gone for a while.
The whole thing is like those things go away. People get upset and they're like, nah, it's fine.
They're going to
It's
continue
okay.
to pay for Netflix. It's like people
Yeah.
get mad when their favorite show is canceled, and then they're like, "I'm going to quit Netflix." It's like, all right, you're probably not.
Yeah,
Like,
nah.
Netflix knows
Like
that you're
6
not
months
going
later,
to.
you quietly go back. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Or you go to quit, and they go, "Hey, we'll give you $1 off a month." And you're like, all right, I'm good.
my morals are worth $1.
I think for me, like I'm going to continue streaming, but like I think that
Yeah.
I'm going to be a much more like aware of this stuff.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway too from what we've been talking about with sampling is like kind of just remembering that the way that stuff is made, it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be removed from history. It's like it's just because something is made in a way that might be considered like illegal doesn't mean that it should just not exist in like the main way, like in our main library of entertainment.
Yeah.
And you also have to think like how many of these artists like really like, especially if we're talking about like potentially deceased artists, like we're talking about very old artists. How many of them actually care this much? Like if you were to be able to ask some of these people, like how much of it was a sandcastle for them? They were like, I love doing this and I'm enjoying the process. And like, does it need to be here 150 years later? Did anyone ever ask Bowie that? No, probably not.
Right.
But like, it's also like, are we putting too much like conservation effort for certain things that like actually that may not be the purpose.
Right. Well, just because we can preserve everything doesn't mean we necessarily have to. I mean, it'd be cool if we can, but like historically, that's never happened.
That's true.
Probably millions of hours of classical music written that nobody ever knows about anymore because it wasn't written down or saved or anything like that. Like, It's just kind of the part of like human nature is going to happen, but we're at a point where we can try to save it all. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a unique point in history.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Since the internet.
Yeah.
Well, before we go into what we're listening to, did you guys have any tour stories from your past weekend? It's okay if not.
The morning we were leaving, we went to this coffee place, and Hagen ordered a coffee, and I ordered a bigger coffee, and I was like, I got an extra large, and I fucking dropped it.
I didn't know there
Did
was
they give you another coffee?
It didn't open fully, which is, I think, more embarrassing.
Was it in a glass container?
No, it was not. It was in a plastic.
He like I didn't know they had bigger sizes, and I was like,
such
you
an
got a bigger
asshole.
size? I got a bigger size, and it all just straight falls down.
Yeah, but at least your smaller size, it made your hand look bigger.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. I don't know if there was any. There was unfortunately someone passed out at the bar. That was scary.
It was very scary.
That was very scary.
And I kind of felt bad for the band that was closing the night because there was like ambulance and stuff like that. Police
yeah.
While
officers.
they're playing, and they're
And
like,
they're
I
just
don't know
like-
what we're supposed to do.
I saw the lead singer look at the bartenders like, should we stop?
Yeah. I thought
I
she
think
said
in that
I thought-
situation, I probably would have.
Yeah.
stopped.
I feel like you stop and at least take a few minutes and be like, what are we?
I thought I heard her say like, should we stop? And then they like were like, yeah, okay, we're done, guys.
Yeah, because think of the like, and I'm not saying this happened, but like think the worst case scenario, and like would you like to think like, oh man, I kept playing my loud rock songs in that situation?
Yeah, that's not great. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I thought it was a good little tour for us, good little short run.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the juicy stuff.
Our Airbnb had Blitz 2000, the arcade game in it.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
That's pretty serious.
That was
I was trying to talk to
sick.
my phone on the wife, and I could hear you guys in the background yelling. Full on yelling. She was like, do you want to go hang out with them? I was like, no, they're playing fucking video games.
Old
Yeah.
video games.
Old
too.
video games.
Super fun video games.
We frolicked in a field.
We did frolic in the backyard
There's
of our
video of that.
Yeah.
I did think like I was thinking like I saw John Wick recently, and there's like a dance scene and obviously action, and I was like, obviously there's blaring music, and I was like, that set just sounds like squeaking shoes, and maybe there's a metronome for the people to dance and the actors to be on their cue, but I was like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
And I saw that frolicking field video, and I was like, I wonder what the direction was here.
I
Like,
said-
what is the actual experience?
I said, all right, walk, guys. On my cue, we frolic.
Yeah, when you said that, all I could hear in my ears was. The wind hit my ears at the. I was like, "What did you say?"
And then everybody's dispersed.
Looking around and trying to fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we stayed up too late.
Very late.
Because that's what always happens. And me and Dave shared a room. And I came back from the shower, and Dave woke up, and he goes, ugh. I was like, you good? He's like, yeah, I'm great.
She got to let out that morning sigh.
I think shortly after that, you were like, it's not like I had 30 beers last night.
All right, what we're listening to?
I don't really have anything new.
You saw Dawes.
I saw Dawes. That was at the factory.
How was Dave's Dawes?
That was really, really
Daw.
good. And I think I will give the factory another chance, and I'm just going to try to get closer to the stage anytime I see a band I want to see there.
Yeah, you
I
were
think
off
that's
to the
helpful, though.
side.
Yeah. But
At
no,
least in
I
the
mean,
video I saw.
yeah, we were close to the stage. I was at the bar.
Yeah.
But we were close to the stage for a majority of the night, and it sounded great. So I backtrack on that. But I also watched the Jason Isbell documentary that just came out called Running with Our Eyes Closed. And it's a really good watch.
Nice.
That's what I'll recommend.
What are you dawsing to?
What am I dawsing to?
Yeah.
I have spent a lot of time listening to the record Boygenius. I've spent 2 weeks now.
Didn't we talk about this last week?
We talked about it before the episode.
Yeah,
I
you,
thought-
you
but-
didn't want to talk about it.
I did. I
Some things are said off mic, Adam.
I said that I didn't. I said that I wasn't going to talk about it last week. And
I thought you did.
no, I talked about Fall Out Boy last week. And I might have said that I'm listening to it, but I've really, really given it like a fair shake. And you and other people, sorry if I'm not
God
supposed
damn
to say
it,
this,
guys.
but you're not the only person that said this. But a lot of people who hear this album hear each person's songs, and I don't know the artist well enough to experience that. And so like I can kind of hear that, but for me, I think the only thing that I feel weird about is like maybe the song order feels a little strange. Like the flow of the album is a little like not my preference. I don't know what I would do differently, but I think the songs are like A+. They're really well written. I like the lyrics. I like everything's great on it. So yeah, if you haven't listened to it, which you probably have because it's like a huge thing, but the record Boygenius is really good.
I saw all the contents are good, but it feels disjointed as a single like thing together.
It does.
I saw an article that said like, oh, like it's their first #1 record. I was like, it's their first record.
Yeah, I would hope it is.
Great for them, but like I was like, read the article, not the head.
That was probably written by AI.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
What have you been dawsing
Nothing
to?
other than that album that Hagen just talked about, which I agree with. I thought a lot of people were talking about how it doesn't feel like an album, and it's like I kind of expected that, but it didn't seem that way.
I think
It just feels weird.
as I'm not as familiar with like all of their works, it's really hard for me to like kind of go into this with that kind of idea. But just the song order feels like the progression of like up and downs that we feel throughout feels like you said disjointed. It's tough.
It feels kind of like they just put it in like random.
Yeah.
Because they like couldn't agree on like how to order it or
Except
something. Or maybe
for
it doesn't have to go in an order. I don't know. Maybe
Except for the first song. The first song is obviously the opener.
Right.
That is obvious. Like that's it. Everything else was like, who knows?
But not everybody cares about sequencing.
Yeah.
I'm shocked you didn't listen to the hour-and-a-half long orchestral piece that Thomas Bengaltar put
I
out.
did add it to my library, and I didn't listen to it yet because it's an hour and a half.
Today I listened to like 3 hours of music, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna put that on, and then I scrolled down to the bottom to see how long. And I was like, absolutely not.
I shouldn't have done that because I probably had an hour and a half. I could have listened to it, but I just didn't want to start it.
At that point, I put on Nintendo music with rain, and that was way better. It was way better. It was really calming. I can send you the link to that if you want.
I was going to say, hey, you can put that in the show
Also,
notes.
the 80s city pop playlist I listened to. But genuinely, what I've been listening to is Zane Lowe did an interview with Linkin Park.
I fell asleep during that.
Really? Oh, man. Like, so I loved it because is it because Dave Farrell was on it?
No, it's because I was exhausted.
Oh. Yeah, so I was watching it. Zane Lowe, love him. Was a huge fan of the first two Linkin Park albums. Came out when I was like in elementary school, and I remember that was like one of the first things that my brother was listening to, and I was like, "What's this?" And then he shows me, and I'm like, "Dude, this rips!" And then I just stopped listening to them, and then I saw this interview, and I was like, "You know what? I should go back and listen to those first two albums." The interview was about the 20th anniversary of their second record, Meteora, and I didn't realize those albums are like 30 minutes long. They're lean, is what they were calling them. And I was like, that's a good way of putting that. Lean is good. And man, they're so fucking good. I was like, these hold up so much. And I remember specifically the song where they have the breakdown of the shut up when I'm talking to you. And I remember I was telling my parents at like Easter brunch, I was like, yeah, I remember listening to this song and like being like, oh man, my teachers, my parents, I just wish they would shut up when I'm talking to them. I was like, I just remember being like a fucking elementary schooler and be like, oh yeah,
Same.
I get this.
Same.
Yeah. So like it just like it definitely holds up. I told one guy I was in the studio with, I was like, yeah, I just like went back and listened to him, and I was like, it feels so good just re-listening to these. It's just awesome. It feels awesome. And like my partner was getting into it. First thing that came out of his mouth, man, I wish Chester wasn't dead. I was like, fuck.
Dude.
It fucking killed. When he said that, I was like, yeah, me too, man.
One of my students tonight was like, you ever heard of Elliott Smith? And I was like, be careful.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. So like those first two Linkin Park albums, if you were ever into them, don't be afraid to go back. Like it just
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid. They feel so good, and like watching that live from Texas concert, I was just like, damn, like I can sing the notes that Chester is singing, but I can't sing them the way he is.
No,
like
no one can sing like Chester did.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that band's wild. And yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Those first 2 records, I'm just shocked at how much they actually hold up. I thought it would just be like, oh, Numb's going to be good, Breaking the Habit, that kind of stuff. The obvious ones, but like the whole thing, it doesn't sound like of its time.
There's a lot of like very specific YouTube voice instruction videos about sounding just like and not just like Chester, but like very song specific moments. It's just breakdowns of like, here's how you can do this and still not sound half as good.
And I remember I saw them live, and like it was one of those
Damn,
things,
dude, that's awesome.
it was like a year before too. And it was one of those things where I wasn't going to see them, but I was like, well, I'm already here. I'm going to watch them. And like, I remember watching him and thinking like, cause you watch like Corey Taylor sing and you can see the neck.
He's got a big neck.
But you can also see the strain a bit. But like watching like Chester perform these songs, I was just like, damn, he didn't like, there was no like, it was effortless. Like he didn't strain, his face wasn't red. It was just very like, he could do that. And I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You have to like wonder if like people like, like Kurt Cobain could like if they had made it to the like 60s or 50s, like could they have done that, or would they have sounded like?
Yeah, he was already
Dave.
blowing his voice out.
Yeah, Dave Grohl. It's like, would they have sounded like Dave?
I just started singing.
Sorry, Dave Grohl. Fuck. Yeah. Yeah. So, any plugs that you guys got? Obviously, we have a shared one, but
Yeah. No.
I don't think so.
yeah, our band Moniker is playing in Dallas this Friday, April 14th. It'll be during Emo Night. So as I've been saying, come relive your old, the glory days, and then see some of the bands trying to make the new glory days. So that's at Southside Ballroom in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, we're playing late enough. It's like an after party type thing. So like you can go do the emo night thing and like, scream your MCR out, get that all out, then come watch us and join in the pit. I've tried to make for the most part, except for maybe one song, I tried to make a set that I was like, there's a pit moment at least somewhere in each of these songs, if not the entire song. So hopefully we get a pit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely pitted.
Absolutely pitted.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely bricked up. Absolutely pitted.
I imagine we can put a link to tickets also. And
I think we did last week.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
When you guys mentioned it, right?
Yeah.
That would have been
Yeah.
last week, yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Anybody got anything else?
No.
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't already, please follow or subscribe on whatever podcast app you are using. If you're watching on YouTube right now, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Those things help us out a whole lot. If you're on social media, you can find us, DFTA Podcast on Instagram, Don't Be the Artist on TikTok. Go drop a follow on both of those things. Instagram is good because we post when we're going live. I know we haven't done our Hagen and Dave Fun Fridays for a couple weeks, but we're going to be doing that this Friday.
Yep.
I'm saying it now, so we have to do it. So we're doing that this Friday again because we probably won't be doing it again for a couple weeks after that.
More traveling.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to do this one. If you have any thoughts about topics, if you want to say hi, if you want to send us any long rants, any thoughts that you have, please send us an email at sampling@don'tfeedtheartist.com. Seriously, anything you can put anything you want to in the email, we'll get it.
Please sample us in your next song.
We'd love that.
And by that, I mean the podcast, not my music.
Yeah, sample the podcast.
Ask for permission on that one.
This is serving as a record that you can do that for the podcast.
Yeah. And please drop a comment on the YouTube video, slide in our DMs on Instagram and TikTok. We'd love to hear from you guys. Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And
Fuck off! Get rid of town!
It sounded louder than normal. Well,
Fuck off!